Hello everybody. Today we're going to do a little bit of tripod maintenance on my Really Right Stuff. This is the TFC 12 Mark II, and yeah, that is a bit of a mouthful. So I have some photography trips that are planned for the next couple of weekends, and I need to go through my gear to make sure everything is in good working order. And one thing about this tripod is I do notice it's a little bit gritty on the twist locks and also on the hinge. As I move the leg, I can definitely feel some grittiness to it, so it's about time to do a full cleaning. Full cleaning, I do it about once a year because I live in the desert, so I don't really have to deal with salt water like some people. But if you do live in a wet environment and you're in the ocean and there's just salt water everywhere, you're probably going to have to do it a lot more often because corrosion is an issue, and you basically just want to stay on top of it before it gets to a point where it causes damage and now you're going to have to replace parts to repair it. So if you stay on top of keeping it clean, really shouldn't be an issue, and your very, very expensive tripod should be able to at least last you a lifetime. So at least that's the plan, because you know, these tripods are not cheap and I don't want to have to keep buying them. So if you take care of your gear will take care of you. So that's been something that's been drilled into my head for a long time. But just to go over some of the tools, you do need a 5/32 Allen key. I like to use one of these little pocket screwdrivers. You can get these pretty cheap, Harbor Freight, Amazon. I got mine through my Snap-on dealer. Alcohol, grease, cleaning, and also I do like these Q-tips. So I prefer these Q-tips over the ones that you would normally get at the pharmacy to clean out your ears, because these are more industrial. What's nice about these is A, you have a really sharp point, so you can really get into areas to clean. And two, the cotton is wound really tight over the stick, so it doesn't fall apart like a standard ear Q-tip will. So, and they come in a pretty large package. I got mine on Amazon, so I'll make sure to provide links down in the description of all the tools here that I use. So if you need to pick some stuff up, more than free. So before I get started, now again, this is my tripod. A lot of the ideas should work on other manufacturers and stuff. However, please consult the documentation with your tripod. It should give you some information on how to take it apart, all the different parts and stuff. And you know, while things might be similar, obviously with brands and stuff, they have their own patents, so things might be a little bit different. And if you're just not comfortable taking stuff apart, contact your local camera store, because they may offer some type of cleaning service, and yeah, they'll be able to get you up and running for sure. So let's go ahead and get started. So I like to start from the hinge and just work my way down. So we'll go ahead and grab my Allen keys. And they're snug, but they're not torqued down. And we'll go ahead and just get this. Now might be hard to see, but on the bolt, you're going to see some nylon. That's basically the thread locker. Now, from Really Right Stuff, they said you can probably get about a handful of uses, meaning removals and reinserting. So, you know, if the nylon is gone, contact your manufacturer to provide new bolts, because you do not want to use like thread locker that you find in an auto parts store, you know, the red or blue stuff, because you're going to be removing these bolts somewhat often to service the tripod throughout its life. And if you have like red thread locker, I mean, good luck getting the bolts out. That's pretty much, you know, not permanently secured, but you're going to have a bad time trying to remove them. So Just stick with the factory stuff. So that's the one bolt. Now we have to get the hinge out, and normally I'll just go ahead, use my Allen key. It helps if you lift the leg up a little bit. That'll take pressure off of the hinge and it'll just pop right out. Set that down. Now, as I remove the leg, I want to be careful and not drop the washers. So I'll go ahead and set those aside, and we'll go ahead and set this aside. All right, and now we have the leg assembly. Oh. All right, that's just going to come out. So inside, this is the assembly that basically allows you to adjust the angle of the leg. It just comes right out. Grab your little screwdriver. Now luckily mine has a magnet, so that becomes helpful, so you can be able to grab the spring. The spring is under tension, so you have to be careful. I haven't had one like shoot across the room before, but I would hate for that to actually happen, so make sure you're careful with that. Then use your screwdriver, and here's an insert to be able to then pop out. And the insert, if you notice, there's these ridges, and they ride inside of the machined out areas of the button, and basically it just rides like that. Okay, so like to do is just take a quick little look, make sure that there's no corrosion, no damage. Make sure that everything is, within good working order, no cracks. The aluminum is anodized, but once you actually cut the aluminum and now you have a raw aluminum surface, corrosion can then attack that area. So if you do have any like deep cuts or anything, sometimes what I'll do is I'll just grab like a Sharpie and just color it in, just to provide some type of a coating over the scratch, and also it kind of helps it look a little bit nicer. So I do, when you do use your equipment, you're going to get scratches. That's just the way it is. But the goal is don't abuse it. All right, so let's go ahead and just start cleaning. So I'll grab one of my Q-tips. I'm using 99% rubbing alcohol. It's from a company called MG Chemicals. I'm pretty sure there's other companies out there. I like the 99% because it is an electronics cleaner, and the benefit of using this is that it does not leave a residue. I have found that the other alcohols, the stuff you get at your Walgreens and pharmacies, it does kind of leave a little bit of stuff behind, but this stuff is made for electronics, and it dries really quick and doesn't leave anything behind. So then we'll go through and we'll start cleaning. And when you remove the grease, you're getting all the dirt and stuff with it. So make sure all the mating surfaces are nice and clean. And you don't need to use a whole lot of cleaner because, again, there's just not a whole lot of grease. This isn't a U-joint or a drive shaft, so you don't need to have grease oozing everywhere. You just need to have a little bit of lubrication for the metal-to-metal contact, and then I'll go through and inside and clean out this area. And it evaporates pretty quick, so I'll just grab a towel and just do a wipe just to make sure that that's completely dry and that I don't have anything left behind. All right, so that is clean. And now I'll go through and start cleaning out all the individual components. So the rail, where that plastic thing rides in, make sure that's all clean. Again, I live in the desert, so really I have to deal with sand, so I don't really have the corrosion issue that some folks may have when they're working out in the coastal areas. So that's all clean, and try not to drop your stuff. Clean out the plastic. So I don't use alcohol or any chemicals really. I kind of just wipe down the plastics, because I do find that some chemicals do dry out the plastic, and I don't believe that this is impregnated with any type of oil, but there's definitely a shiny surface to it. So you don't want to grease this. And then, you know, the spring, don't grease the spring. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and assemble this. Make sure, again, this is all clean. On the horseshoe is going to be towards the front. The spring is going to sit on the post. And there you go. And what I like to do is just to kind of work it to make sure that the action is nice and smooth, and make sure I don't feel any grittiness as this is moving back and forth. And you don't want to do that either. There's the spring. So as you can see, we'll do that again. And the spring does set a certain way. So you're going to want to make sure that as you take it apart, that you're kind of just paying attention to how everything goes together. And the spring will actually ride these grooves that are cut into this plastic piece. And that allows it to have a really smooth action. So again, but once you have it assembled, just be careful, because again, if you were to hit this wrong or something, then the whole assembly can, because it's under tension, and all pieces will fly off. Go ahead and clean the washers. If you see any corrosion on the washers, you can get some fine sandpaper, put it on a flat surface, and try to sand it off. But you really need to be careful, because the washers need to be of a certain thickness, and you don't want to remove too much material. So if the washers are really bad, then you can again contact the manufacturer, and I'm pretty sure they'll be able to supply you with some new parts. Clean the bolt. Then we want to clean the hinge. Inspect the hinge. I believe this is stainless steel. You want to look for any gouging or pitting, and again, any corrosion. So if you do see a little bit of corrosion, again, you can take some sandpaper to remove it, but you have to be really careful, because you don't want to leave a flat spot by sanding a little too much in one area. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and clean the tripod itself so we can start assembling it. And get rid of all the excess grease. Clean out the inside. And as you're cleaning, you want to inspect, for any damage, any corrosion. Because if there's any damage to your tripod for whatever reason, you want to fix it while it's on your workbench and not while you're out in the field. Okay. Wipe down all the excess. And I like to look down the hinge and look for any scoring, pitting, anything major, and everything looks good in there. So it's nice and clean. So all right, so we're going to go ahead and grease up and start assembly. So grab a little bit of grease. Now, Really Right Stuff, they recommend a product called Super Lube, and you can get Super Lube, actually it's right here. You can get Super Lube just about anywhere. I picked this up at Harbor Freight, but you can get it on Harbor Freight, Amazon, Walmart. I think I've even seen it at Target. Really Right Stuff, and again, this is their lube of choice at the moment, but they recommend any type of bearing grease. I'm using this stuff from Phil Wood. The only reason why I'm using it was because when I bought my first Really Right Stuff tripod, this was their grease of choice, and I bought essentially a lifetime supply, so I never have to run out of grease. Let's go ahead and... So you grease the outside, and I will explain why here in a minute. Make sure you have a little bit inside. The reason why is when you put your washers back on, the grease is going to hold them in place. Just like that. So when you're assembling the leg back onto the triangle, it's going to help, hold everything together. Okay. So you don't need any grease inside of here for this. So you want to make sure. You'll hear a very nice, satisfying click. That means you have metal to metal contact, and you want to feel to make sure it's flush. If it is, then you know that you've installed it properly. Go ahead and insert the leg. And again, if you have your leg at an angle, it just makes assembly a lot easier. Go ahead and rest the leg, and now we're going to put a little bit of grease on the pin. You don't need a whole lot, because any excess is going to get squeezed out because the tolerances are pretty tight, and just less cleanup. Again, this is just a hinge. It's not a internal combustion engine, so you don't really need to coat too much. And there you go. And then pin goes in. Again, it helps, if you raise the leg a little bit to make everything seat. And now we get to assemble. Clean off your hands. Now, how tight is too tight? Well, you're going to tighten to preference. So the manufacturer doesn't really give like any torque settings. So obviously if you have it too loose, the leg isn't going to hold its weight, right? That's not what we want. So I want to make sure that it's tight so the leg can hold whatever position you put it in. And once you get to that point, it's tight enough. So there's really no need to put an impact on it and, tighten it down to 1,000 foot-pounds. That's not necessary. So then we'll go through, clean up any excess grease. You don't want, because you're going to have grease that kind of ooze out. You want to clean up as much of that as you can, because one thing about grease is that it will attract dirt. So try and get rid of as much of the excess as possible. As you can see why I like these pointy Q-tips, because you can really get into tight places and clean around the bolt heads and get rid of all the excess. All right, this is nice and clean. And then what I'll do is I will then just test to make sure the locking mechanism works. And yeah, and just like that. So then of course you'll just go around and service all three the same. So now the twist locks. So again, the twist locks, I actually will clean out the twist locks quite regularly. So Really Right Stuff, they do have a O-ring. It's kind of really hard to see, and that does a really good job of preventing dirt from going inside the threads. However, if you're working like at sand dunes or whatever, dirt's going to get inside. I mean, that's just the way it is. So I've been finding myself having to clean the threads, once every 4 months, 6 months. And yeah, so you just want to make sure that they're nice and clean, because, there's that tactile feeling of just clean threads. I mean, it feels nice, right? And when you have gritty and stuff, it feels like sandpaper. That's just no good. So that's what we want to avoid. So we'll go ahead and remove the first leg. I'm only going to do one because the process is going to be the same for the others. Go ahead and unscrew this. Pull the leg out until you begin to see, it's kind of hard to see because they're black too, but these are compression rings. Put your fingers on them, and as you slide it out, that'll prevent them from falling out and dropping on the floor. These are extremely important. You don't want to lose these, and you want to make sure that you reinstall them. The reason why is that on a tripod, the end right here, even though this is carbon fiber, this is the weakest point of the leg. So if you didn't install these, for one thing, you know, it doesn't center inside the other tube very well. And if you were to, you know, crank down on the this, especially if you have the leg fully extended, you can actually crush this. So, and also they prevent the leg from, you know, pulling all the way out. So these are really important. So put those aside, take off your foot, try not to drop it like I just did. And I use simple green, so Really Right Stuff. They recommend warm soapy water. You know, that's fine. Use you know, whatever cleaner you use. I've used like Windex, anything that isn't too harsh. So, and I always just spray the rag. I don't spray the part, and just wipe it down. Make sure it's all clean. And as I'm cleaning, I'm also inspecting the carbon fiber for any damage. So carbon fiber itself is really strong, obviously strong and lightweight, but it's not indestructible. So if you have any gouges, any really deep gouges, and you're actually showing fiber, even though this is several layers, once you cut through a couple of layers, you've now introduced a failure point. Now, will that mean that this whole leg will, you know, just buckle under the weight of a camera? You know what? That's really hard to say, but it's going to be up to you to decide on, you know, when you're going to replace it. But if I see any damage, it gets replaced, because a leg is a lot cheaper than having to replace a camera because it fell over. And obviously you can just see how dirty it is. All right, so we'll go ahead and, so it's nice and clean. Now we'll focus on the threads. Take your towel, just kind of clean. If they're really bad, you might be able to grab like a nylon brush with some, you don't want it, definitely don't want to use any metal, nothing, no metal bristles, and just go through and just clean the threads. So you don't need anything too fancy. You know, my rag has a little bit of cleaner on it, but it's not dripping wet. And don't forget to clean the inside. Okay, and now we're going to actually do a quick little test. So dry, I'll just screw it on, and it feels really clean. So I don't think there's any dirt left. So I think we're good to go ahead and reassemble. So we'll go ahead and put the twist lock back on. There's these pins that will correspond with the hole inside of the leg. Make sure they're on there properly, and you'll feel when they seat in there. There you go. And you're going to notice, this may be hard to see, but there's going to be a gap between the two compression rings, and that's going to correspond with two pins inside. So you want to, you'll twist it, and eventually you'll be able to guide it back in. And yeah, it does take a little bit, so just take your time, and eventually you'll get it. Okay, got the leg back in. So it took me a little bit of cursing, and you know, finally got it in. So So we're good. All right, and I'll work it in just to make sure that there's no like resistance or anything that's, you know, an obvious signs that it's not assembled correctly. All right, so go ahead and we'll grab some grease. Again, you don't need a whole lot, but I will paint some on the O-ring, just a very light coat, because O-rings need some lubrication for them to do their job. But a little bit goes a long way. Go through, and then we'll just work this back and forth to distribute the grease around the entire twist lock. And it's looking good. So we'll go ahead and grab a towel and just wipe away any excess. And then you'll just go up the line. And one last thing that I like to do is on the rubber foot, get it all clean. Then I like to do is actually put a little bit of grease on the thread. The main reason why is not that it needs lubrication, but if you ever have your tripod in the water, the grease is hydrophobic and is going to prevent water from getting in through the threads and filling up the leg of your tripod. And that's it. And then you should have a very clean and working tripod. So when I'm out on the field, I actually do carry, they usually have like a 3-ounce tube of grease. I normally carry this with me in my camera bag for cleaning, because I'm not going to be carrying around bottles of cleaner. I keep this in my car. It's a 40 wipe container of tub towels. So this is really good to just keep in your car for, you know, cleaning your hands, or, you know, if you have to change a tire or something, your hands get dirty. But this is really good on, you know, just getting rid of any unnecessary stuff. When I go to Death Valley and I'm photographing at Saltwater Basin, there's a lot of salt that collects at the bottom, and I want to get that stuff off as soon as possible. So yeah, let's go through and just clean it, and yeah, you can see there's still quite a bit of gunk. So a clean tripod is a happy tripod. And that's it. So then you just obviously go through, clean out all the legs, grease everything, and you should be good for your next photography adventure. So thank you for watching. I'll have links to all the products and stuff that I use down in the description. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, feel free to leave them down in the comments section. So thank you for watching, and on to the next.